And from the top of West Mountain in Scranton, Pennsylvania, good morning, everybody. This is 94.3 FM, The Talker, Sanity Check. Libertarian Lou, Tea Party Mike. X should be joining us today. Frank is not in studio. You want to blow off a little steam? You want to start that weekend off right? It's 888-577-4487, 888-577-4487.
Good morning, Lou. I understand we're in for a treat today with your interview with Wayne Allen Root.
It is Wayne. Wayne, how you like that already, Michael? It's unbelievable. A little different show today for sure. Certainly with the time difference, as you know, even with yourself. But with Wayne, it's 3 hours difference. It's 4 o'clock in Las Vegas. And Wayne was really a second guest, or maybe even our first guest, really, when we first started this, right? So we go back a ways, and just so folks know that certainly I've been a friend of Wayne for a long period of time. We go back quite a few years. And but the interview is all about the IRS and a lot about Wayne too, a little bit. We just wanted to give some background, Michael, and all those other things. So it's a long interview. It's a little different. This is not going to be your normal sanity check, Michael. We could get to sit back and just listen how it progressed. We did this interview yesterday. Darius was in studio with myself, and we kind of said that we're just going to let it run unedited. I mean, certainly there might be some points in there that I might not necessarily agree with, and I think you'll be able to pick up on those things. But nonetheless, people have their opinions, but more importantly, this interview is about the overreach of government. It has to do with a little bit about Common Core, the overreach of state-run schools, and what is happening when the IRS targets individuals. And I think we all have a little bit of experience with that. So with that, Michael, if you don't have anything you want to jump right in on, we could at the 15-minute breaks we'll be able to chime in a little bit, but if there's anything else you wanted to jump in on, that's great. Otherwise, we could start the Wayne Allen Root interview right now.
I see. Let it roll, Lou.
Let it roll. Okay, Michael, I'll be back in 15 minutes with you.
All right. Sounds good.
Good morning, Wayne.
Good morning, Lou. How are you?
We're doing great. Hey, listen, thanks first of all for joining us here today on Sanity Check. But one of the reasons I asked you on a few weeks back, you were the guest speaker, one of the featured speakers at LPEX, which was held in Las Vegas, and you spoke a little bit about your dealing with the IRS. Wayne, I got to tell you, it was not only riveting, but chilling, and that was the main reason I asked you to take some time out of your busy day to be on with us today. And it was quite amazing. But before we launch into all those things, and certainly what happened with the IRS, would you just I want to talk a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are today, and so our listeners know a little bit about you, the homeschooling that you've done. You're an author, Murder of the Middle Class, and it goes on and on and on. So,
well, here, I'll give you the highlights, the career highlights. First of all, best-selling author is probably my favorite title.
There you go.
Murder of the Middle Class, also The Ultimate Obama Survival Guide, which was the #1 political book in America at one point in 2013. Finished the year, I believe, number 8 out of all political books in America. Murder of the Middle Class, the most recent one, and now my new one comes out. It's not political. It's 100% business, success, personal development. It's called The Power of Relentless. It's out August 10th, and I'm just so proud. I worked so many months on this book, Lou.
Yeah.
And we just approved the cover and the book jacket yesterday. It looks fabulous, and I went out very proud of the fact that I am relentless, and that's the only thing you could be to be successful in life. And writing the book is a relentless process, as I think most people who've ever written a book know. You better be relentless. This is my 10th. But getting the quotes, the endorsement quotes for the book is actually, you have to be more relentless than actually writing the book itself. And I just got quotes from the kings of American business. On the back of the book, I have quotes from, I think, the 2 brand names of U.S. business, Forbes and Trump. Steve Forbes and Donald Trump.
Oh, congratulations.
And it took, literally dozens and dozens of phone calls to dozens and dozens of people at their organizations to finally get through to the right person who gets through to Trump himself or Steve Forbes himself. And then when you get on the phone with Trump himself and Steve Forbes himself, you have 1 minute elevator pitch to win them over, to get them to give you a quote for a book that does them no good, that could only hurt their life, never help it. It does nothing for them. So how are you going to get them to do that? How are you going to convince them? That's what I'm a master at. That's my specialty in life. And Trump gave me a beautiful quote, and Steve Forbes read the book and gave me a beautiful quote, and Ben Carson, another presidential candidate, read the book and gave me a beautiful quote, and all of the top business people around this country, and also a few sports stars and a former NFL head coach. It's almost more work to get the endorsement quotes and convince people to read the book and convince them they should say something nice about it, even if it doesn't help them in any way or make them any money. It's harder to do that than to actually write the book itself. So this was a real, long-term, hard work ethic example. I am exhausted, mentally and physically exhausted, but thrilled that it's now coming to fruition. August 10th, the book comes out, The Power of Relentless, and you can get it pre-sale, by the way, right now at Amazon.com.
Well, that is fantastic. As you know, I'm in the middle of writing my first book, and I will take that all to heart for sure. Certainly, your history. I know a little bit about you. Growing up in New York, you eventually moved to California, and then you had to leave there. You went to Las Vegas. You call Las Vegas home for many reasons.
Well, let's make sure we don't give anyone the wrong impression when you say had to leave. I wasn't in any rush to leave because the cops were after me or anything like that. No, listen, I grew up 27 years. I was 27 years old. I grew up from birth to that age in New York,
right.
And I left because of taxes. I decided I wasn't going to pay the kind of taxes the state of New York demands from people. And I went to a place where taxes were a little bit lower, called California. And I stayed there for, I think, 13 years.
Right.
And I left California because I was not willing to pay the taxes. It went way up during my 13 years there, to the point where it was almost as high as New York. Today, California's taxes are higher than New York. So I made a brilliant move. It was almost 14 years ago that I left California, and I've been in Las Vegas all these years. And let's just say that, let's compare income tax in California. I think it's 13.4% is the top rate. In Nevada, it is 0. So let's just say, for argument's sake, you make $1 million a year. Just to give you a round number so that it's easy to do the math. On $1 million a year, you'd pay $134,000 in tax for the privilege of living in California, and for the same income, you'd pay 0 in Nevada. So over a 10-year period, you'd save $1.34 million just by living in Las Vegas versus, say, Los Angeles. Unbelievable. So now, I don't understand why anyone who makes $100,000 or more, anyone who owns a business, anyone who's high income, anyone who works hard for a living, why would you ever choose to live in New York or California or in Illinois, the highest tax states in America, versus the lowest tax states of Florida, a Texas, or Nevada? That's where you want to be. You've got no other choice anymore. If you're in business and your income is good and you've worked hard your whole life, you've earned it, you deserve it, the money is yours. You at least have to move to a state where the tax is lower. Some would argue it's time to leave the entire United States of America. You must know I'm here for good. I'm never leaving.
Yes.
I'm just going to stand and fight for lower taxes and a flat tax like the one Rand Paul just recommended, which came literally straight from my book. Rand endorsed my book. He's on the cover of the Murdering Middle Class saying this book's a must-read. Well, he must have read it, because his tax he came out with yesterday is the exact tax I recommended in my book. But you must know that more people are leaving America and giving up their citizenship than any time in the history of this country since Obama became president.
Sad situation, certainly locally here. Carr Arms is a gun manufacturer that for 20 years was in New York, and they just packed up their bags a while back, and they're moved to Pennsylvania because they say it's impossible to do business in Pennsylvania. Certainly, the one other thing, or a couple other things, I just want to talk a little bit about you so the listeners have a little better feel for who you are and what you do. Certainly, you're a regular guest on Fox and all kinds of radio shows. You've had your own radio show. You have a star on Las Vegas Boulevard. But maybe one of the things that you always point out, one of your proudest accomplishments, is homeschooling of your children. Just give a little bit about that, because certainly we talk about Common Core here and how the government has overreached with state-run schools.
Well, it's funny, Lou, because I am in probably the worst education state in the United States of America. We're at the bottom of the 50 states in every category, right up there, or right down there, might be a better way to say it, with Mississippi. So it's Mississippi and Nevada fighting for who's the worst school system in America. And, the idea that I just think there's a crystal clear example. The idea that I raised my child, I have 4 of them, but only one of them can I prove because she's, gone on to graduate magna cum laude from Harvard University after being homeschooled. But all 4 have the same kind of testing grades in the Stanford National test that they take, that kids all over the country are required to take in public schools, and I make my kids take them to see how they are learning, to see how they stack up against kids all over the country. And all 4 of my kids at the same time period, around 3rd grade and 6th grade, were in the exact same place. My other 3 kids are in the same place as my Harvard graduate Dakota. Top 1% of all the kids in America at the very, very tip of the needle top. And Dakota homeschooled her whole life. The first classroom of her entire life was in Harvard University. and the great part of the story isn't even that. It's that she was accepted at Harvard, Stanford, Columbia, Penn, Brown, Yale, Duke, University of Chicago, Cal Berkeley. She was, I believe, 12 for 12 of the 12 best schools in America. At the bottom was one of the best schools in America, Virginia. Being that it's not Ivy League, I kind of list that one last, or even leave it out of when I recite the schools. Virginia's a great school, and it was at the bottom of all the ones she applied to that she got in. She wasn't rejected by anybody. She was offered early admission by Yale. She turned it down, and she winds up at Harvard, graduates magna cum laude, then gets accepted for her master's at Cambridge University, turns it down, wanted to spend a year enjoying Europe, which she just did, and now she just got accepted for a full 100% free scholarship for her master's degree at one of the best universities in Germany, and she'll be leaving in the fall, in September, for Germany for 2 years, where she gets a free ride and gets her master's. And then she plans to get her PhD from Oxford or Cambridge. So she's an amazing kid, and she grew up in the same town that has the worst school system in America. And those kids go to public school, and the schools complain all day long. They don't have enough money. They don't have enough resources. Well, guess what? My kid was homeschooled, minimal money, minimal resources, and she wound up better than any of the kids in the public school system. How do you explain that?
Well, I think we all know how it's explained. The state-run schools are failing at every level, and we need competition. So,
and Nevada just passed the best law in the country, by the way. I had some criticisms that have been in the media about some taxes that Nevada just passed on business.
Yes.
However, what I'm going to write soon is I'm going to cheer the fact that Nevada became, by all regards, by the way, of anyone in the school choice movement who's an expert, Nevada is now the leader of the entire America in school choice. We passed a universal school choice bill. The few states that have any school choice in America, they only give it to poor kids. Unless you are below the poverty level, in a place like Washington, D.C., and a few other places, they had school choice programs, at least till Obama got there. And only if you're at the absolute bottom in the poverty level were you able to take advantage and get a payment from the state to send your kid, to apply to a private or a parochial school, or a charter school. But in Nevada, we just passed the most wide-ranging universal school choice in the history of America, and every single person, regardless of income, low, high, or in the middle, everyone qualifies to get $5,100 a year check from the state of Nevada to apply it to any school you want. Send your kid to private school, to charter school, to anything you want, including homeschool. If you use the online curriculum of the public school system, you can use it towards homeschooling. So it really was the greatest bill ever passed in the history of America. So here's a state with 0 state income taxes, and they'll give you back $5,100 a year per child that qualifies for this school choice program. I mean, I think that now solidifies Nevada as the best state to live in the United States of America.
Talking about Columbia, and I'm looking at an article that is posted on the Blaze. I know you they carry your articles all the time there, but it says the IRS conspiracy goes directly to the Obama White House. I'm not just a conservative media personality. I'm President Obama's Columbia college classmate of 1983, who has repeatedly questioned Obama's background and agenda in the national media. I think what we're getting to here is that the IRS has been used to go after folks not only like you but other Tea Partiers and conservatives to raise money and to kind of put any kind of roadblock they can in your way.
Not just the IRS, but I think many government organizations, from the SEC to the FDA to the FTC. If you're in business in the United States of America with Barack Obama as president, I think you should fear writing a single check to a conservative organization or cause or candidate. They're going to use that against you, and they're going to try and ruin you. And if that truly is the case, and I think that I could prove it's the case, then I think that what we've got is a wide-ranging criminal conspiracy, and all these people in the Obama administration need to go to prison. And if you persecute them, or I should say prosecute them,
right.
Wrong word, they persecute us. But if you prosecute them and you squeeze and offer them either 20 years in jail or no years in jail, guess what? I think they're going to talk, and eventually I believe it would lead right to the top of the White House, to Barack Obama. This starts at the top. He's the one who gave the ultimate green light, and the people under him like Valerie Jarrett and David Axelrod were all in this up to their necks. Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago, at one point was the chief of staff of the White House. When all this was going on against me, I blame him and Valerie Jarrett and David Axelrod. They all got the green light originally from the capo di tutti, isn't that what they call it? The head of the mafia, the head of the Obama crime family, Barack Hussein Obama. Listen, he, in my opinion, committed fraud to win the 2012 election. He knew that the Tea Parties had destroyed him in 2010. And the only way to stop the momentum, the energy, and the enthusiasm, and the intensity, which would have led to a big victory in 12, the only way to stop it was to destroy the Tea Parties and go after all the top conservative donors and all the speakers and all the people on the board of directors of the Tea Parties. And I'm telling you, I've gotten letters, I've gotten emails, I've gotten phone calls, and I've met some of them personally at events. People come up to me, total strangers, and they go, "Wayne, you hit the nail on the head. Yep. I'm on the board of a Tea Party, and not only was my Tea Party audited by the IRS, every single board member was audited." Another guy came up to me, a friend, not a stranger, a friend, to say, "Oh my God, I never put it together till now. I attended the very first meeting of Wall Street people for Mitt Romney, a year before he even announced he was running. And every single person I've spoken to in that room, there were 50 people in the room, and this guy said he knows 20 of them. All 20 were audited within 90 days of writing a check for Mitt Romney for president. Okay. Guys, there's no such thing as a coincidence like that. There are no coincidences like that. 20 people you know are in a room from Romney who write checks, and they all are audited 90 days later. This is a widespread criminal conspiracy by the Obama crime family to try and destroy and distract and intimidate and persecute all the people that support conservative candidates and causes and keep themselves in office. And they've done it, and they pulled it off. The 2012 election should not have been won by Barack Obama, and it was won because he came after guys like me. I'm the greatest, I think, living example who has proof of what happened. I'm the only Tea Partier I know of in the country who actually fought the IRS and won and got a hold of my IRS files and found in them real concrete proof that could lead to criminal indictments against members of the Obama administration.
And Wayne, we're going to take a break. When we come back, and that's exactly what we're going to get into. Like I said, after listening to what happened to you with the IRS, it's not only riveting, it's chilling. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Wayne Allen Root.
Do you want education through Blue? Saturday mornings, 94.3 FM, The Talker.
Life and full of love.
Some days I don't know if I am wrong or right.
Your mind is playing tricks on you, my dear. 'Cause though the truth may not be this, she'll carry our larger show. Don't listen to a word I say. The screams are
Maybe today you should listen to a word we say. 94.3 FM, The Talker Sanity Check. We are back live. We got Michael on the phone. We got now X on the phone. Also, Michael, two things. One, in that first segment there, I had a little faux pas. It's almost impossible to do business in New York. It was not Pennsylvania. And Michael, do you know anybody else perhaps leaving an area because of taxes?
Well, it's Texas kind of sounds like Texas, so yeah, that would be me.
That was you, and I still remember today when you were talking to Luzerne County Council there, and you said, you know what? If you guys continue doing what you're doing, I have no choice but to pack up my bags and leave, and that's exactly what you did.
I tried to hold true to my promises, Lou, and the sad part is I was not the only one, Lou. I am not the only one. There's still people leaving.
No,
those that can will.
And it will continue to happen. Good morning, X. I think we have X on the line, but perhaps we'll get him.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. So, real briefly,
I love Wayne because he walks the walk. There are a lot of people out there that talk a good game, but when it comes to making a difference, I mean, the fact that Wayne is homeschooling all 4 of his kids, and in the educational establishment is scared of people like this, because it's interesting how many of these homeschooled kids you find where their parents have spent a fraction of the time that you institutionalize kids Monday through Friday, have come out actually at a better educational advantage. They always want to talk about this socialization, like somehow locking kids up for 40 hours a week in a public school is going to socialize them.
Yeah. So X, obviously, with Wayne, we went to dinner, or actually lunch with him that Sunday, but we've spent quite a few hours with Wayne, and the rest of the show pretty much will be continue talking about how the IRS is used to go after individuals, and it's and one of the things that'll be brought up here in the next 2 segments is how big business, how big media has played into all of this. So we'll get right into the next segment here, and when we come back, we'll be able to touch a little bit on big media and certainly how you now, X, have been I guess knocked off of a couple of the bigger shows out there. They just don't want you on. So, but in the meantime, we'll get back to Wayne Allen Root. Okay, Wayne, we're back. So let's get right back into it. On air with us is Wayne Allen Root. We're talking about his experience with the IRS, and Wayne, exactly what happened with you. And I have to keep going back to this, listening to not only the proof that you had, how long it took for you to get your files. It is something that we all need to look at, and folks, I got to tell you out there, it's chilling. It's chilling what our own government is doing to ourselves. So Wayne, back to you, and give us a little background of what you had to go through your audits and what you had to do to get your tax files.
Sure, and I want to start this, by the way. I always like to make sure I get out the shameless plug for my books, because on these interviews, you get so riveted and so intense and so passionate about what you're talking about that you never manage to tell everyone where they can find all my commentaries on my website, Root for America, where they can contact me, Wayne at Root for America, or where they can find my books. Of course, Amazon.com. You can find The Murder of the Middle Class, The Ultimate Obama Survival Guide, and my new book coming out, which is called The Power of Relentless, August 10th, but available right now, pre-sale at Amazon. You order it, and it's on your doorstep literally on August 10th, the day it comes out. Amazon's amazing. So back to the IRS. Listen, when I bring up those books, guess what? The things I write in those books are what attracted the attention of the Obama administration. I remember back in, I think it was 2010, but it could have been 9. I remember a friend called me and said, I'm on the East Coast, Wayne. I'm in New York, so it's 3 hours ahead of you. At exactly 9 o'clock, you got to turn on NBC. Your face comes on the air. And I said, what do you mean? He said, there's a special about the Obama White House, and you're in it. I was like, what? So at 9 o'clock, I turn it on. It's all access. The first time a TV network, Lou, has ever gotten access to the White House for a whole day, behind the scenes. They could film anything they wanted. Obama gave them full access. So they were in I guess what you call the panic room, I think it is, or the media response room. Maybe It's the war room. Whatever it is, it's the room where all his aides sit, and all day long they respond to crisis, something that could hurt the administration in the news. And the day they were there was the day, I guess, or the day after that Sotomayor was appointed to the Supreme Court.
Right.
And I was on Fox News that day saying that here's a woman that it's been uncovered that she said, because I am a woman and because I am a minority, I am better qualified to be on the Supreme Court than a white male. And I said, what if I said that I was better qualified because I'm white and I'm a male? By God, my career would be over. This is the ultimate form of racism. She is a racist, and she's disqualified herself, and she should be voted down. And I'm saying this on Fox News, and in the middle of this special on the White House, they've got them running around like chickens with their head cut off with Wayne Root on screen saying this. In the middle of a 2-hour NBC special is their example of somebody who's causing a crisis for the White House is Wayne Root, and only 1 year later, Lou, or less than a year later, is when my IRS nightmare began. So there's no coincidence. It isn't like the White House didn't know who I was. Forget the NBC special. I was everywhere in the media telling people that Barack Obama was my college classmate, and I never saw him, never heard of him, never met him, and I was the big mouth, in Yiddish. There's a word called yenta. You're like the big mouth. Everybody knows you. And at Columbia University, I was the conservative yenta. I was the guy everyone knew, and I knew everyone because I'm so political and I'm so passionate about politics. You couldn't miss me. And I knew every kid in the political science department, and they all knew me. And there wasn't one kid there who knew Barack Obama. It's not just me. No one knew Obama. And at the 30th class reunion a couple of years ago, I interviewed every kid in the class, and no one had ever met Obama, and these are Obama supporters. And they all thought it was strange. Everyone admits it's strange and it's bizarre, it's mysterious, and I believe it leads to the conclusion he's a Manchurian candidate. He was there, but he wasn't there. Very strange. So I grabbed the #1 professor at Columbia. I'm giving you the story before the IRS attack.
Yep.
I grabbed the #1 professor for 45 years at Columbia, Henry Graff, 45 years as the presidential historian and the lead history teacher and the head of the history department, just a legend. For 45 years, and beyond dispute is credibility. And he never heard of Obama, never met Obama, never had him in any of his classes, and said, Wayne, it's impossible. You could have graduated Columbia political science major in pre-law like you and Obama, and he was never in my classes. But you were. I know you. I followed your career, Wayne. I knew you became the Libertarian vice presidential nominee. I'm the presidential historian. I know everything about every politician who ever graduated Columbia, but I know nothing about Barack Obama. I have doubts he ever went here. That were the exact quote words of Henry Graff, presidential historian of Columbia. And so I reported all this in the media again and again. I attracted the attention of the Obama administration, and the next thing you know, I'm subject to a vicious IRS attack. And folks, some of you listening may be liberals, and you're going, well, good, he deserved it. Guess what? At the moment they did it, whether I deserved it or not, whether you like me or hate me, whether you think that I'm crazy or you think I'm brilliant, doesn't matter. At the moment that call was made by the Obama administration to the IRS to go attack Wayne Root, a crime was committed. That's a fact. That's criminal. You cannot go after people because they're critics of the president. You cannot go after people to silence free speech. You cannot go after them because they're political opponents. If you do that, you go to prison. Ask the Nixon administration about that. That was the second article of impeachment, and the reality is, right after Nixon, they memorialized that in the law. No president can go after his political opposition or his critics. Can't do it, or you wind up impeached and the people around you go to prison. Barack Obama did it, folks. And so when you ask me, Lou, what happened exactly, it started with a phone call, the very thing that the head of the IRS in media interviews just 2 months ago said can never happen. He said, the one thing I know is you'll never get a call from the IRS to start a audit. We don't call. We send a letter in the mail. So if you ever get a call from the IRS, hang up the phone because it's an imposter on the other end. That's what the head of the IRS and the spokesman for the IRS was saying in the media for the last 3 months. And the reality is my investigation began with a call from the IRS. And when I called my accountant, he said, Wayne, don't worry about it. The guy who left you a message, he said exactly what the head of the IRS said. Right. They never call. It's got to be just an imposter playing a prank on you. And then a few minutes later, he called me back and said, no, it's real. They just called me. Me, meaning the accountant. They just called the accountant. When they couldn't get me and they only got a voicemail, they then called my accountant in the next few minutes. And the accountant said, Wayne, it's real, but I'll take care of it. You never have to speak to them again. I have your power of attorney, and they know that now. They will never talk to you again. I hung up the phone. A few minutes later, the phone rang. It was the IRS.
Right.
I mean, you talk about chilling. They've been told never speak to Mr. Root again, and they chose to call me again. And the guy says on the phone, and this is what led me to realize instantly that this was political, and they were coming after me for my political views. First of all, the guy says that I know I'm not allowed to speak to you ever again, but I had to talk to you once because I'll never get another chance in my life to talk to you, and I'm your biggest fan. And I fought to get this audit. It's such an honor to be auditing you. I never forgot these words. They stuck in my brain. It's an honor to be auditing you. I fought to get this audit. Everyone in the Vegas office wanted to be the one to audit you. We fought over it, and I won, and I am proud to be auditing you. You ever hear anything so ridiculous in your life? The minute you hear something like that, you know he's not your fan. He's not proud to be auditing you. He did fight to get the audit, I'm sure, and he fought for it because he's my enemy and he wants to destroy me. He's playing Columbo. He's trying to see what I'll say if I think he's my friend. And the next thing solidified it for me. After that, basically it was a 15-minute conversation with him doing all the talking, because I know to shut up. I don't talk.
That's surprising.
And I know that something's wrong. And he's out to get me, and he talked for 15 minutes about my political views. Not his, mine. How did he know mine? He had obviously studied my entire life. He said, Wayne, Mr. Root, I think he said Mr. Root, I followed you on the Internet. I go to your website. I read all your columns. I've listened to you on KXNT, which is the big, basically CBS political talk radio here in Las Vegas. I was on there all the time as a guest host and a guest. He said, I listen to you on KXNT all the time. And, I watch you on Fox News, and I understand everything you believe in, and I'm on the same side as you about all of it.
Oh, boy.
Can you imagine an IRS agent even discussing the topic of politics with you and reciting back to you your views on issues? I remember he knew so much about my issues. He even said something about, you're a libertarian, you're politically, you're fiscally conservative, and you're socially liberal, and I even love that about you. And I remember thinking, how could he know all this?
Right.
This is bad news. And so now let's fast forward all the way to the end of the story when we finally win, and then we force the IRS to hand over my tax files, which almost nobody has ever gotten them to do. This was over a one-year battle, even though the law, Lou, the Freedom of Information Act, the law of the United States states they have 30 days to hand over your files. They fought us for, I think it was 14 months, and we finally got them, and they're written in all the little creases, typed in, written in, are things about my political views. The agent wrote it on my tax returns, folks.
And
by the way, it isn't like I could have faked that. It was all on microfilm, basically emailed to me. So it's there forever. It's nothing I can do to change it. It's there captured on an attachment of my files. So they knew everything about my political views, and the agent actually typed in, went online and researched the political views of Wayne Allen Root, know everything about the guy. Basically, that's what he said in my IRS file. So we got him. That becomes a crime right there. They have no right to research me or find out anything about me. What do my political views have to do with auditing me? Nothing. That makes it a crime, folks. That makes it a Nazi Gestapo crime. That makes it a KGB crime, a Stasi East Germany crime. That's something the secret police do when they're out to destroy you because your politics don't meet with their approval in a communist nation.
Wayne, I have these records, and certainly I have some of your records right in front of me, and some of the information that was written there with Wayne Allen Root for America. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue talking about the IRS and what they put into your files, Wayne.
Talker.
Hey, brother, do you still believe in one another? Hey, sister, do you still believe in love? I wonder. Oh, if the sky comes falling down for you, there's nothing in this world I wouldn't do.
That's what they tell you. There's nothing in this world they wouldn't do. Hey, Michael.
Hey.
When you, I don't want to get too much into this, but when you were recently audited, without getting too personal here, did the IRS call you and tell you they're your biggest fan? How about you, X? When we were recently audited, did they mention that they were one of your biggest fans? I mean, it's amazing.
I got a call recently from one of those fake callers. I did get one of those. He didn't really compliment me. He tried to put the fear of God into me. No idea what he was talking about. But it was. Please, there's people out there that really get afraid of the IRS, and I guess maybe we should, but it's just not in my DNA, though.
It just
Lou, let me just add a couple thoughts here.
Absolutely.
The point that Wayne is making, and this is where everyone should be afraid, where it comes down to what's going on with the surveillance state that we live in.
Yeah.
And there was a guy that wrote a book, I think it's called 3 Felonies a Day, but basically it proves that we've reached a point in society where we've created so many laws, it's impossible not to break the law in the course of a normal, everyday life. And this has gotten to the point whereby the government at any time can go after any individual and get them on something. Now, of course, I've done my fair share of following police officers around who probably break traffic violations left and right on their way to go to a sandwich shop or a donut shop as they do illegal turns and all this other stuff. Speeding, I've got a picture on my phone of a
Right.
police officer texting while driving. Again, these elected officials, they create rules that nobody lives under, but this is by design as a control mechanism so that everyone knows in the back of their mind, and this is where this IRS thing comes in, if something happens, they can always go after you. And this has been political from day one. I mean, Nixon did it. Other presidents have done it. And the surveillance state is going to make it worse because now what happens is they're going to want people to, I don't know if a lot of people don't know this, but if you go to the bank and you take out more than $10,000, they have to fill out a form on you.
Right.
But if you adjust for inflation when the $10,000 limit was put in place, that's like that. The amount is equivalent back then. When they did it in 1970, of around $1,800.
And I think they just lowered it, by the way, too.
Right. So in order to adjust for this would be like you should only be having to report if you pull out $50,000 worth of cash. Okay. But all they're doing now is they're making it so that they don't want to cash. They want to go to a cashless society so that they can track everything that you do, where you spend it. It goes into the metadata. I mean, people just don't understand the power that they're giving the government. And it's not to create something to stop the bad drug dealers. It's for extortion of and control of the public.
Well. Thanks again, X here, for getting my blood pressure up here early this morning. We're going to jump right back.
Let's not forget X is being audited also.
No, that's what I said. That's why I said I asked. I didn't want to get into all these different things, but that's why I kind of mentioned and I asked Michael because I know he's went through numerous audits, especially after he started the NEPA Tea Party, Michael. Perhaps, but that's why I was kind of joking a little bit. Have you guys received phone calls? But we got to roll. Because this next segment's a little long. Once again, this is an unedited version of my talk with Wayne Allen Root yesterday. We're back with Wayne Allen Root, the best-selling author, Power of Relentless. How's that, Wayne? I'm going to make sure we get that out. That's coming out in August this coming year.
You know what's funny is what you're doing is you're learning from me how to be relentless. So you're relentlessly pounding into people's minds the name of your book. That's called branding, and that's a very important thing. Matter of fact, when people ask me, Lou, I know your background and mine similar, libertarian politics. Mine has moved on to Republican politics, but the end result is when people ask me why the Libertarian Party has never gone anywhere, why libertarians seem to be in polls extremely popular, but never do they get any votes. And the answer is they're not relentless enough.
Yeah.
They're really not relentless. The average personality type of a libertarian is very laid back, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but actually a lot of them are very pro-marijuana because I think they smoke too much marijuana, and they sit on their couch and they don't attack. And if you look at what Democrats do or Republicans do, the best of them are relentless. You have to constantly fundraise and ask people for money. You have to constantly get your opinion in the news. You have to be in the media and relentlessly attack. And libertarians just don't know how to do that. It's a personality trait of type A business leaders. You don't become rich in America unless you are relentless, and that's what I teach you in The Power of Relentless. And Barack Obama is the most relentless liberal I've ever seen in my entire life. He's a guy that loses in a landslide last November, the most historic landslide in modern history, complete repudiation of everything he believed in, and the result of that wasn't hiding in the White House for 2 years. It was passing via executive order everything he ever wanted. He ignored the landslide like it never happened, and he made believe he's the most popular president in history. And that's relentless. I may not like anything he does, but I certainly respect his style. His style is my power of relentless. He could have co-written the book with me.
And one of the things you always brand yourself really as a Reagan conservative. Quickly tell that story about what happened when you were in Colombia as a student and the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan. I think our listeners would find that to be...
Yeah, that was, what was that, 81, I guess it was, and I got to Colombia in 79, and it was 81, yeah, because Reagan became president in 80, and very soon thereafter, it was, kind of in the middle or at the end of his first year in office, was that assassination attempt. And so a kid ran into our classroom, our political science classroom. I can even tell you the teacher, Esther Fuchs, was the teacher. And it was in a theater in the round, meaning the biggest class I ever went to at Columbia. I think it was like 150 students in this giant theater with very high ceilings that echoed. And the door slammed open, and everybody turned around to look because it was such a loud, echoing noise. And the kid ran in breathless, completely out of breath. He'd been running to tell us. I guess he'd been watching TV, and he came in to tell us the president's been shot. They've assassinated Reagan. Those are the words he used. Now, of course, we all know now Reagan wasn't dead. Assassinated indicates dead, but it was an assassination attempt. So the way it came out sounded like Reagan was dead. And the entire class's response was a standing ovation.
Yeah, I know. It's
whooping and cheering and high-fiving and hugging and celebrating like it's New Year's Eve. And I of course, loved Ronald Reagan. He was like a second father to me. I considered him like my dad. I loved him. And I represented him in the campus-wide debates in 1980. I was Reagan in the campus debates. And by the way, one of my proudest achievements in life. In such a liberal school, probably the most left-wing in all of America, I was voted the winner of the debate. The audience, was like 99% for Carter, but yet I was awarded the victory as the winner of the debate. The audience voted, I think, 70% that I won the debate. So I loved Reagan, so I literally ran out of the room, went in the bathroom, and literally threw up. I mean, I threw up, not just because Reagan was dead, which made me sick to my stomach, but because my hero was dead in my mind, and all my fellow classmates were cheering. I mean, it's as if you were Jewish and your entire class cheered the Jews were dead. It's as if you were Catholic and your entire class cheers because the Pope is dead. Or the class cheers because, a nuclear bomb's been dropped on Israel. You can't believe, number one, the shock that something or someone you love has been destroyed, and at the same time, your classmates that you thought are your friends are cheering because this happened. It was sickening. It was disgusting. It was appalling. It is one of the strongest moments of my life. Of utter disgust. And all these years later, I get Columbia College Today magazine 4 times a year that tells you where your classmates are in life, their career achievements.
Right.
They're very happy to tell you and brag. I'm now the head of NBC News. Well, almost every kid I ever went to school with that was in that classroom is a big shot in the media.
Yep.
So now you tell me, if everyone I went to school with put on white hoods and they were members of the KKK, 30 years later, would they be allowed to be members of the media if they gave the argument, well, I was 19 or 20 years old, and so at that point I hated black people, but now I'm completely fair and honest, and I could be the head of NBC News? They'd be drummed out in 5 minutes. So you're telling me that 30 years ago, a kid who at the age of 19 cheered for the death of a Republican, for the sin of being a Republican, and is now the head of NBC News or CBS News or the Evening News or the morning shows? That's who my friends and my classmates all are today, folks. And they're running the media of America. And you think it's possible for a Republican to get a fair shake? They're all hiding what they really believe in. They're all true Marxists and communists, and they hate, and I mean despise, capitalism. They hate everything about America that makes it great, and they certainly hate Republicans and conservatives, and that's who's conducting the interviews and deciding what gets on the air in the media.
Back to the IRS files here, Wayne. I'm looking at this, and right on your tax form, it says sensitive case. Now, not only did you get audited once and beat it, if I remember correctly, and I have this story correct, it was not 5 days later, was it not, that they followed up with another audit?
Yeah, you have the story exactly correct. It was 5 days later after I was literally still celebrating that we won a complete 100% victory. I didn't owe a dime. And my lawyer called and said, "Are you standing up? Sit down. I got to tell you something. You should be sitting down." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You're being audited again. We just won 5 days ago, and you're being audited again." He said it's unheard of. Before I called you, I asked around some of my colleagues, and I haven't found anyone who's ever heard of a case like this in the history of American tax law. No one's ever been audited 5 days after winning in tax court. It's just not possible, Wayne. You really are on the president's enemies list. That was the exact words of my lawyer at the time, who was basically a Democrat, as all lawyers are, and never quite believed that this had anything to do with politics. In his mind, it was just overzealous IRS agents, and we had to beat it, and you're in the right, Wayne, and they're in the wrong. But it was never about Republican-Democrat politics. He felt now, when he heard this, he said, "Oh my God, you're right. You're on the president's enemies list." And this is one of the top tax lawyers in America. And again, I'm telling you that he's not a Republican, and so he just didn't believe it was political or didn't want to believe. And suddenly he knew instantly this was 100% a president ordering an attack on a citizen because of his political beliefs.
Judicial Watch got in the middle of this for you and certainly helped getting your files and looking at those files. Folks, this is for real here. Right on tax forms. Sensitive case. What does that mean, Wayne? Sensitive
and
case.
Here's the important part. People are going to go, how does Lou know? What is Lou talking about? The average person at home or in their car right now is thinking, what is Lou talking about? Well, see, the key is credibility to all this. So you can't just make charges. You have to prove it. So we took my tax files and we found all the pages with the incriminating information against the IRS and I believe President Obama, and we literally handed them over to the Blaze, Glenn Beck's website, so they could see it, therefore, and print my article with total credibility, knowing I'm in the right, and that they could never be accused of making anything up. And then we asked them to print it. Literally, in between the pages of the article, go ahead and print for all the world to see all the incriminating evidence. So you will see, in the middle of the web article at the Blaze, you'll actually see that show that the IRS says they researched my life and studied my life, and I'm a conservative guy, conservative media guy on Fox News and on other radio. They named all the radio shows I did at the time, and they named the Las Vegas Review-Journal, where I wrote a column at the time. And so that's there. The sensitive case, where they branded my file, sensitive case, that's there. The fact that a United States senator was involved in my case, a U.S. senator from Oregon, I assume that means that's who instigated the case, who called up the IRS and said, "Go get this guy, go study him, go audit him, and go make his life miserable." Well, guess what? There were only 2 U.S. senators, Lou, at that time from Oregon, both Democrats. And so it isn't even possible that this involved anything but a political witch hunt. And so it was a Democratic senator, and Ron Wyden, by the way, I'm just conjecturing here, I don't know to be a fact the name of that senator, but there were only 2 of them in Oregon, and one of them was Ron Wyden. He was the chairman of the Finance Committee of the United States Senate, which had IRS oversight. So I'm assuming what happened is the White House made a phone call to the chairman of the committee with oversight over the IRS and said, "You talk to these guys all the time. Go ahead and tell them to make this guy's life miserable, Wayne Root." And Ron Wyden did that. So, I'm conjecturing, I'll say allegedly, but I'm telling you, a United States senator was up to his neck in the persecution and intimidation of a member of the opposite political persuasion. That's criminal, folks. People should go to jail if America is a just country. I don't know that it is anymore.
Well, and certainly, once again, looking at this now, what happened was after the first audit, you got out of that clean bill of health. They started another audit. And once again, what happened after that? I mean, because I believe when Lerner was gone, or when she quit or retired, I'm not exactly sure what she did, but did they not just end your case completely right the same day?
Yeah, she was suspended from her job at the IRS the day after she took the fifth in court, not in court, but actually in front of the United States Congress. She took the fifth and said, on the grounds that this may incriminate me, I refuse to answer your questions. And the next day she was suspended by the IRS. On that day that she was suspended, the day after taking the fifth in front of the U.S. Congress, that was the day that a top IRS official called the IRS and said, "Close Wayne Root's case today. I don't want this case on the books anymore. I want this killed." And they closed the case. Is there anyone out there starting to get the sense, the same thing that I said, that 20 people in a room who write checks to Mitt Romney and they all get audited within the next 90 days? Do you think it's even remotely possible that's a coincidence? Because if you really do believe that, you're an idiot. You're brain dead. And if you believe that my case was closed the day Lois Lerner was suspended, by coincidence, of all the dates in the world, why would a top IRS official call my auditor in California from Washington, D.C., and demand Wayne Root's case be closed? That brings up so many questions that prove this is criminal. How about question number one? Why does a top IRS official, at the time, I remember my lawyer saying he got the impression from the IRS auditor the call was made by the commissioner of the IRS. Now, I don't know that to be a fact. I'm just allegedly it was a top official is all I'm willing to say. But at the time, it sounded like the head of the IRS himself made the phone call and said, shut down Wayne Root's case now. So whether it was the top guy or it was a top guy in Washington, why would that guy even know about Wayne Root's case? And if Wayne Root was innocent and Wayne Root doesn't owe a dime, why would he choose that day to suddenly need to close the case? Why didn't he ask for it to be closed a long time ago if he knew I did nothing wrong? And if, in fact, they suspected that Wayne Root does owe a lot of money and did do something wrong, why would they demand it be closed? It brings up so many questions that we don't have enough time in an hour show to go over all the questions. But all I could tell you is my gut instinct now says this is pretty good circumstantial evidence that my case was being orchestrated by none other than Lois Lerner, that she was given the files of people to go after, and Wayne Root's file was on her desk, and when she testified in front of Congress, all these IRS people realized they were dead. They could all go to prison. It's all over for every one of them if any of this gets out, so let's kill every case on her desk. So they walked in a room, and they grabbed the box on her desk, and they started making phone calls all over the United States to kill every case that was headed by Lois Lerner, and that's how my auditor wound up with a phone call from one of the top officials in America in Washington, D.C. to kill my case.
Now, your files have been turned over to U.S. Senate investigators?
Yeah, my files have now been turned over to the U.S. Senate investigators investigating the IRS scandal, and they have turned my files over to the Inspector General of Tax Administration of the United States of America, who has already interviewed me. And actually, as I record this interview with you today, I'm headed to a second meeting with him this afternoon.
Wow.
A second meeting with him. He says he has some information he wants to show to me right away. So I'm actually kind of excited that this is going to be a big meeting.
And since this report first surfaced, and since you got this out on the blaze, you've been notified by quite a few people, right? Same thing, same circumstances.
Say that again, Lou.
Since
that other people have had things like this happen to them, you're saying?
Yes, you've been notified,
emails from conservatives all over the U.S. who say, something to the effect of this. I'm paraphrasing, and I'm obviously not going to tell you that 20 people said the exact same thing, but some version of never in my life audited, went to a Tea Party event, signed a petition, and suddenly I'm audited by the IRS. Or went to a Tea Party event, wrote a check, suddenly out of the blue, audited by the IRS when I'd never been audited in my life. Or went to a Republican campaign fundraiser and wrote a check, and it was a big one. I wrote a check for $2,300, the maximum that an individual can write. That must attract the attention of the IRS, because all of this is public knowledge. When you write a check, the FEC has to report that you wrote the check and who you are and what your occupation is. I guarantee you that those lists must be grabbed by the IRS under orders of the Obama administration, and they immediately go after all the big donors of the Republican Party. Folks, there's no other way to put this. This is fraud. This is how you steal elections, by destroying the donors of the political opposition or the biggest critics of the president. And that's what's happening.
Wayne, thanks so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. Certainly, they could get in touch with you, Root for America. You're all over the internet. Your new book, Power Relentless, is coming out. Your other books, The Ultimate Obama Survival Guide, The Murder of the Middle Class, all great reads. And I appreciate the time that you've taken today to let our listeners know what's going on, not only with you, the IRS, but certainly what's happening around the country.
Thank you, Lou, and and they can always get all my commentaries are free at rootforamerica.com. You just sign up, and the next thing you know, you're getting 2 or 3 times a week the latest information on what's going on in politics, the dirty details of what's really happening in this country. And believe me when I tell you, this country's being given away. I may be very Republican, conservative, libertarian-oriented, and anti-Democrat, but in the end, the country's being given away by politicians of both parties who don't care about anything except corporate interests and bigger government and big media, and they don't give a damn about the individual. And that I put that blame on both Republicans and Democrats. Democrats are worse, but Republicans are pretty darn close. It's really bad what's happening out there, and I'm writing about it on a daily basis. And the new one I'm going after is called TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership and Fast Track Authority, TPA, for the president to put these treaties into effect. I'm telling you, they're giving the country away, Lou, and it's a combination of Obama and Republicans in this case, combined with some Democrats giving the country away. And so I write about it at rootforamerica.com.
Wayne, keep up the good fight, and thanks.
Thanks, Lou. God bless.
Betcha. We're back live. Hey, guys, we're down. Michael, we're down to the last 40-something seconds here. Certainly, we have enough fodder for next week's show, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the interview with Wayne Root. And Michael, you got the last word, my friend.
Of course, God bless us all.
God bless everybody. We'll see you back next week.